And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about March Madness. Happy March, everybody, even though March is almost over. But this is the beginning of the craziness. Upsets. It really is. It's a fun time. It's a fun time. And, for me, you guys know me by now. I'm not a college basketball savant by any means. But when March Madness comes around, you have to do a bracket. And I've been doing brackets now for about 10 years, I would say. And it's a lot of fun to do them. Now, you get really upset when, a team comes along and busts your bracket that you didn't see coming. But, hey, that's part of it, and we got Creighton and Louisville coming up in about an hour or a little over an hour and a half. And hopefully, I get off to a good start there. Now, I will be honest, I have done more than just one bracket. I've done several. And this is one game that, I picked Creighton in a few. I picked Louisville, at least in one. I think that's one of the best games of the day, if I'm going to be honest. Louisville is actually a 3-point favorite. Louisville's coming in. They finished second in the ACC. I believe they did lose to Duke in the they lost to Duke in the championship game, 73-62. And then for Creighton, they lost in the championship game, the Big East championship game, to St. John's, 82-66. And they beat DePaul in double overtime, and they beat UConn to get to the championship. But yeah, they lost to St. John's, and Ryan Kolkbrenner, that's the best player on Creighton. So that factors into taking Creighton over Louisville. And the thing about Louisville is, a couple years ago, I wanted to look up their record a couple years ago, because they were one of the worst teams. So, record-wise. So, that's right. So, actually, they haven't been good for quite some time. Well, you go back to 2021, the 2021-2022 season. They were 13-19. Then the following year, this is what I was talking about, the 2022-2023 season, they were 4-28. This is Louisville. This team is usually good every year. And then they were 8-24 in the 2023-2024 season, and then this year they're 27-7. And their conference record's 18-2. So they got themselves back on track, but it was a rough stretch there. But they find themselves back in it. They 27-7 on the season. But I do have, like I said, Creighton winning in a majority of my brackets, and I'm going to stick to that. Last year, fun fact about last year, in my bracket, I had 3 out of the 4 teams coming out of the Big East. I had Marquette, Creighton, and UConn. And I forget, who was the other team I had? I forget what the other team I had was, but I know 3 out of the 4 were from the Big East. Now, obviously, that ended up not happening. I did have UConn winning the whole thing, and, of course, well, just like everybody else did, and that's what ended up happening. But I will make sure not to do that again. So I do have Creighton winning. I have Purdue winning. They are 8-point favorites against High Point. Now, High Point won their conference, I believe. They were first in the Big South. Had a very good conference record this year. 14-2, 29-5 on the season. That could be a potential upset. Now, if you remember, when Purdue was a 1 seed a couple years ago, they were upset by the 16 seed. It definitely could happen. Could happen here. You also have Wisconsin and Montana. Wisconsin, they fell to Michigan in the Big Ten championship. They are 16.5 point favorites. I do have them moving on pretty much in all of my brackets, but you never know. Houston is a 28.5 point favorite. I mean, I think they should win today. A lot of people are picking them to win the championship. I do have them winning in at least one of my brackets. I know everyone's talking about VCU and BYU. That could be a potential upset there. I know one of my friends has BYU going to the Elite Eight. That one, some of my brackets I have BYU moving on. I have VCU moving on. VCU is 28-6 on the season. They're an 11 seed. BYU's a 6. So we'll see what happens there. I know one of my friends is picking McNeese to upset Clemson. Both teams have same record. Clemson, very good year. They finished in second place in the ACC behind Duke. And then for McNeese, they finished in first place in the Southeast or in the Southland Conference. They were 19-1 in their conference this year. So they're 7.5 point underdogs. Potential upset. Auburn is a 32-point favorite against Alabama State. Now Auburn's the one team, the one seed that I was originally like, wow, this team looks like this could be the one to win it all this year, but they've kind of gone on a skid as of late. They did lose to Tennessee in the SEC tournament. They dropped their final 2 regular season games. They lost in overtime to Alabama. They lost to Texas A&M the week before that. They've lost to Florida this year. They did lose to Duke. So that's, I don't know. I'm getting the sense that could be a team that you potentially see getting knocked out early. Because in some of my brackets, I do have them getting knocked out in the next round. You got Gonzaga, 6.5 point favorites against Georgia. Gonzaga, is one of the staples of the tournament. They're good for a few rounds, and then they end up getting eliminated at some point. Tennessee as a 2 seed against Warford. I mean, I got them moving on. They're 18.5 point favorites. The money line, if it's here. So the money line right now, yeah, I mean, it's minus 2,000. So, they should win. Kansas and Arkansas is interesting. I do have Arkansas advancing in some. John Calipari with his new team. Got to get used to that because, he was with Kentucky forever. But this could be a good game. That's at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. That's on CBS. Kansas is a 5-point favorite. The money line, Arkansas is plus 180, and Kansas is minus 220. Like I said, I think I have Arkansas moving on. A&M and Yale, I actually do have Yale in some of my brackets. They're 7.5 point underdogs, but I could definitely see that one not working out for me. Mizzou and Drake. Drake 30-3 on the season. I did pick Mizzou. UCLA and Utah State. Again, mixed it up in a couple of my brackets. I do have St. John's moving on. They're playing Omaha. Peyton Manning's Cadence. They're playing Omaha. 18.5 point favorites. Curious to see what St. John's does in this tournament. How far are they going to go? Because you have some people that'll say they can go all the way, and then you have some that could be knocked out early. And a lot of that has to do with their free throws and their 3-point shooting. But good for them for making it. It's been a minute, but Rick Pitino, we talked about it. He's done a great job. He turned this program around, and let's see how far they can go. They're a 2 seed, and then you got Michigan on late playing UC San Diego, and Michigan's actually only a 2.5 point favorite. UC San Diego has 30 wins on the year. They came out of the Big West, first in the Big West, 18-2 against their conference. Could definitely be a potential upset. I think I did pick them to advance in at least one of my brackets. And then Texas Tech, a lot of my friends, I think, have them going deep into the tournament. They finished second in the Big 12. They are taking on UNCW, and Texas Tech is 14.5 point favorites. I do have Texas Tech moving on in pretty much all of my brackets there. But yeah, everything gets started at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Creighton against Louisville. Really looking forward to watching these games all day. Um, I will be working during some of them, but I will have uh, my eyes on them uh, during that time as well, because I do have the ability for that. But I do have, so my final four, it's kind of chalked. I do have, so I have Duke winning the whole thing in most of them. Cooper Flag is going to come back, and hopefully that means that, they will, you know, do well. But I have them in. I have Michigan State going to my Final Four, and I think I've mentioned this. That's a team for some reason I always pick against, and then it ends up hurting me. I'm not doing that. Now, of course, what's going to end up happening is Michigan State's going to lose at some point, but Tom Izzo's been there forever. He's a good coach, and now Michigan State's really good this year. So I'm picking them to go to my Final Four. Hopefully that pans out. But yeah, I have Florida and I have Houston. So 3-1 seeds. So yeah, you can call me, you can call me whatever you want. But it's just it's hard. It's hard to pick upsets. Now I do have upsets in the earlier rounds, but I was talking to my friend last night. You still find yourself picking, 3 out of your 4 teams end up being 1 seeds. Like you could see Alabama, a team maybe making a run because they were in the Final Four last year. But again, that's a 2 seed. St. John's, you got. It's tough, and especially now, if you're not as knowledgeable, that kind of benefits you because then it's not as hard to pick. But you could go with the better mascot. Who has the better looking mascot? You could do things like that. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, let me know what you guys think though. About the games for today. Any potential upsets that you could see happening, let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So many contributions you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will discuss the potential rule changes in the NFL and if I'm in favor of them or not. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.